Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye. Let's focus on the Ukraine-Russia war. We don't need a nuclear strike on Ukraine. That was President Putin's message after several hints by Russia about the use of nuclear weapons in the war against Ukraine. Putin accused US, Europe and their allies for seeking global domination by backing Ukraine in the war. Let's now discuss President Putin's strategy with Ajai Malhotra, former Indian ambassador to Russia. Ambassador Malhotra, many, including the United States and the UK, feel that because of what the defense minister of Russia said a few days ago about Ukraine using a dirty bomb, Russia is preparing the ground for such an action. What, according to you, was President Putin's strategy when he was addressing the Russian population and the world?
Well, I don't think that would be a correct assessment of the reasons behind President Putin asking his defense minister Shoigu to inform several identified countries about the possibility of Ukraine using a dirty bomb. I think they must have picked up some intelligence information, which surely they would have shared. It's not merely a phone call, a call that would have been made. Now, it would be followed up, no doubt, with providing information as to what were the grounds on which their intelligence has picked up information as to the likelihood of a dirty bomb being made or used in Ukraine or as a false flag operation or whatever. I think faced then with the blowback that came because there was a slight misrepresentation saying that the Russians are threatening a nuclear attack of some kind in case that happens. President Putin then has clarified at the Valdai conference that he has no intention of using nuclear weapons against Ukraine, which is the right thing to do.
All right. So you had President Putin downplaying the nuclear threat, saying that they have no intention of doing so. But in terms of negotiations going forward, we are going to see Russia-Ukraine negotiations again over the next few weeks. How is Russia going to approach these negotiations? And are we going to see an intensification of the war effort, the drone attacks?
Well, at the moment, there's very little talk about negotiations. In fact, neither the Ukrainians want to come to the table, nor do the Americans want to encourage them to come to the table. I think that would only change after the US congressional elections take place, which are due on the 8th of November. You have 35 Senate seats and 435 House of Congress seats that come up for elections. And after that, perhaps there may be a reconsideration. But right now, nobody's talking about negotiations, and therefore that is some distance away. But the basis for the negotiations and what can be worked out from it, I think, is rather clear. If you look at Russia and if you look at Ukraine, both of them are saying, look, my security, I feel threatened. The arguments might be different, but both say, I need some reassurances on security. Ukraine says, I want to join NATO or some umbrella over my head. The Russians are saying, you're too close. And I cannot have, with the missiles and nuclear weapons being deployed so quickly, I cannot have nuclear weapons coming into Ukraine or elsewhere in the ex-CIS, in the CIS neighborhood. So there is a basis for discussion, no doubt. And it has to be on the security architecture, which should then, take into account the concerns of both Russia and Ukraine. That's what needs to be worked out, and that's where the negotiation lies. But at the moment, nobody's talking of negotiation.
Right.
I think for some more time, at least for another 10, 15 days, that's not going to change.
Right. And what also did you feel about President Putin's speech, his reference to Saudi Arabia, praising Saudi Arabia, backing China's stand over Taiwan, calling Narendra Modi a patriot? So how do you see all these comments that were made by Putin there?
Well, some of them were in response to questions, but yes, he is playing all the cards that he should be. With Saudi Arabia, as you know, they have reached agreement on the quantum of oil that would be available in the international market. With China, there is a close friendship that is still in position. And with India, we have a long-standing partnership and friendship in place. So it is but natural that he would make references to these, especially before an international audience, and where there are people from these countries present amongst them, and where media would be putting forward questions on these sort of issues. So nothing surprising in my view.
Right.
I think it is an opportunity. He has always taken this opportunity of these long 3 to 4 hour sessions with at Valdai or with the Russian media to present his views on a number of issues. And this is one opportunity for him to clarify issues in which he feels that enough clarity was not there, and to put forward, and convey noises of friendship and goodwill where he thinks it would work in his interest. And that would be the logical thing for him to do, frankly.
Right. Right. This has been asked again and again, Ambassador Malhotra, as to what is the trajectory of this war. How much support does President Putin have from his own people? How much of the military wherewithal do they have to continue with this war momentum for the next year or so?
Well, if you see, there are several wars that are taking place at the same time. You have a social media war, which the West and the Americans have won hands down. It's a no contest out there. They've kept the Russian, state media out of it, etc. So you get only one side of, of the views that should be out there. You have the internal projections that is there, and in Russia. And up there, I think Putin has very comfortably maintained his control. At one stage, in fact, throughout this period, the support that he has had has been hovering around 80%. It used to be less before. At one stage, it was about at 55, 56%. And this is as per the Levada polls, the Levada Center polls. And even after they announced partial mobilization, the numbers came down only 5 or 6%. And in fact, every time he has such a media event where he projects himself for 3-4 hours, the past pattern has been that his support, as per the independent polling organizations, to the extent that they are independent in Russia, and Levada is counted as independent, the support he gets goes up by a good 5 to 6%. But by any criteria, a support base of 75 to 80% is a very solid support base, which I think any world leader would aspire for. And that Putin very much has in position. There are other wars going on out there.
Right.
The financial and economic war, with the West trying to put sanctions which have not really succeeded. They have boomeranged to a large extent on Europe in particular. And if you see, the ruble has strengthened is now at 61 to a dollar. The price of Brent crude is still remains high at present, still 96 to a dollar. So if you look at all those things, the Russian economy at one stage they said will decline by 20% this year. Now they're talking of maybe 4% decline, and perhaps not even that much. So I don't think that war that war has probably not gone in the direction that the West had hoped for. And if you see the others, you have also a cybersecurity war. You have private American companies involved in supporting US intelligence efforts out there, Microsoft, for example. You have Starlink and Elon Musk and all that they have been doing by providing support through their microsatellites. So that also is one warfare that is taking place. Again, up here, the Russians have not moved against US private sector. Which shows that, when they talk of it is what they call a special military operation. It is a limited sort of war that they're doing. They haven't really used their full force. They haven't really used much of the equipment. As I see it, what they have been doing is trying to whack and destroy as much of the West equipment as they can, and staying ready in case a NATO attack does ever eventually take place. The Russians cannot ignore that, and they're ready for that. I think they've had 8 years to prepare for this, and they've made mistakes, yes. I think a major one was when their international, exchange reserves and gold reserves, 300 billion plus, were seized by the West. I don't think they had planned on that, but they have quickly recovered it as a result of the higher oil price. Within the month itself, they got that amount back. So yeah. There's warfare. It is not all-out war. All-out war would mean they would have devastated. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're running out of time, unfortunately, Ambassador Malhotra, but I think you summed it up well, that Putin and Russia have been preparing for this war. Yes, the sanctions have had an impact on Russia, but they do have the wherewithal to continue with this war effort. Thank you very much for summing up the situation in Ukraine and Russia for our viewers. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.